Hi, I'm Carrie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing another seasonal video. I did this same type of video back, I think it was in September. It might have been the beginning of October. I don't remember. It was called Cozy Not Creepy, where I went to my collection of decks and pulled out several different pairs that I felt could represent that energy of the season. And I did the same thing for these set of decks. So these are creating a Christmassy or Yuletide or just a winter season vibe with the pairs that I have together today. And I have 5 different pairs that aren't about the theme, but maybe about the energy or the colors or the tone or maybe even the memories that the deck brings forward, depending on, what I see while I'm flipping through them. I think this is a great thing to do, is to go to our collection and see what we already have on hand. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first deck pairing I have is the Wandering Star Tarot and the Healing the Inner Child Oracle. This is by Kat Pierce. This is by Nina. I think it's pronounced Mongendra. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Both of these are mass market and available on the Hay House website. Now, the Wandering Star I've had, but the Healing with the Inner or Healing the Inner Child is newer for my practice. So the thing about this pairing, I feel like it carries an emotional warmth. Maybe the kind of energy that brings about a glow, I'll say, to the holiday season. The Wandering Star has always felt hopeful and uplifting when I use it. I think because of the color palette and the use of color within the cards. And when you put it beside this Healing the Inner Child, this oracle, I feel, brings, I don't know, maybe heart or gentleness to the reading. And the colors of these two decks together really, I think, create an emotional bridge that connects them. And when I've talked about the Wandering Star and using the Wandering Star in readings before, I often talk about the colors in the deck and how when I have several of the cards laid on the table, I am looking for the colors that match in other cards and what I feel about that. Does it bring forward an emotion? Does it bring forward an energy? I don't know. Every time it's kind of different for me. And I feel like these two decks, I don't know, kind of encourage each other, because look at this blue. Every single color here in this grief card is here in this 7 of Wands. And for here we have challenge, we have courage, and then we have grief. So this grief is a challenge for you right now, but you have the courage to face this, to move through this. And look where the yellow is. And you've got the yellow in those words right there. The pink is at the center, which is what surrounds her. I would really lean heavily into that when I would be doing these readings. But I feel like these colors help reflect a joy, or maybe together these decks encourage you to reflect on your tiredness or your excitement, or I don't know, even your worries. I mean, look at this green here and all this green in this card for integration. It's just they're so good together. I also feel like these two decks could help you check in with the parts of yourself that maybe you've ignored, especially with this inner child oracle. Now, I've never used the guidebook for this. The couple times I've read with this, I've just used it as a plain oracle, letting my intuition guide me, and seeing, what comes forward from that. But if you wanted to dive into the inner child at this time of year and use this deck for that like soft landing spot, because I think inner child work can sometimes be difficult, I think these would be beautiful. Look at these colors. You got this purple here, you have purple throughout this, the yellow, we have the yellow here. Oh my gosh, these are just recognition, and the Four of Cups. These are so good. Six of Swords, coming home. How about that? How about that pairing where this ship is, sailing towards this coming home? You've got all the purple and blue here. You got all this purple and blue. Look at the yellow moon behind her, and it's right here. This is like a chef's kiss pairing. And every time I turn over another set of cards, I get so excited about what I'm seeing here between these two. I'm going to work with these two together for sure. But I thought this would be a really nice pairing that leans into maybe the softness of the season and the vibrancy of the colors. The next pairing I have is the Starseeker Tarot with the Starseeker Oracle, both by Nikki Ferrata. These are both independent. As far as I know, I don't know if these are out of print. You'd have to check out her website, thestarseekertarot.com, and see if these are still on there. I always use the Starseeker Oracle Tarot since I got it in the wintertime. I usually pull it out in my birthday month, but I thought this paired with this would be really great to use to bring in that maybe that sense of stillness, or even that sense of sacred, because the color palette of these two decks have it's a very cool tone. So therefore it leans me in to the energy of winter. And I think the fact, since they're made by the same creator, it offers like a cosmic companionship, so to speak. And so therefore they kind of speak a shared language with one another. And I really like that. And I like her oracle because it has some guides in it, and it has, I forget all the things. Like Wheel of Life cards, 12 guides, and then it has some gift. I think the guidebook said 4 gift cards. So you could really use this in a multitude of ways if you wanted to. But I think this pairing would be really cool to use to maybe set intentions for the winter. And it almost carries like a dreamlike state to the imagery of these cards. It's cool and ethereal. And I feel like it reinforces that liminal feeling of December, where maybe you're in a reflective energy. But at the same time, because of the season or the celebrations that happen this month, maybe this is a deck to step into some of that quiet winter magic. I think this is a really great pairing that can help you reflect and reconnect to your inner navigation system. You can't help but use these two together if you have them both in your collection. And if anybody uses this at a different time of the year, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear what season maybe you feel that this deck fits in and why. I think that would be fascinating to know. The next pairing that I put together is the Biblical Tarot by, is it Krasimer? Kaylin? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. And Rebecca Campbell. Artwork, The Rose Oracle by Rebecca Campbell. Artwork by Katie Louise. I mean, I think the Biblical Tarot might be kind of a given for like Christmas season if you wanted to pull that out and use it strictly for like religious reasons. But that's not what I was thinking. I mean, partly, but not fully. So I think this pairing is, I would say, emotionally powerful. The Biblical Tarot, I feel, has this solemn, reverent energy, but not heavy. It's more sacred and reflective. And the thing about this Biblical Tarot for this season specifically, I get flooded with memories because when it was Christmas Eve, we would spend it at my one grandmother's house. Christmas Eve was traditionally at her house with all the cousins, aunts, uncles, etc. And I remember the handful of times, and I say handful of times because my mom had three of us, so we were three little kids, uh, the handful of times that we were taken to candlelight service at church. And I remember it being the most magical thing that I got to experience as a kid, because it it was held late in the evening, and it wasn't your typical service. It was mostly the choir singing the whole entire time with bits of scripture, thrown in here and there. But the church was lit with candles everywhere. There were poinsettias, is that how up and down the aisles, all across the altar. I mean, so many that you couldn't even count them. And I remember that we would get past these little candles to hold, and then we would get to light them. We would pass the light down the pews during the song Silent Night. It was just something really special that we got to do that, like I said, just a handful of times. So to use this at that time, it floods me with that memory. And then the Rose Pocket Oracle, I think, steps in and has a like nourishing energy to it. And I don't use this as much as my Mother Mary. And I would probably personally put my Mother Mary next to this for this type of energy. But I thought maybe the Rose Pocket might be more attuned to some others rather than just the Mother Mary Oracle. So that's why I got this one out. But I think the messages of the Oracle are compassionate and I think heart-centered. And I think look here, we have the Tower with unseen support, unseen help, support, and community. And I think the two of these together could maybe bring forward, like a dimension of healing or grace or spiritual connection in some way. But if this is a tarot that you feel comfortable using and feel comfortable diving into the energy of, I think these two, this pair together could bring forward like a tenderness or something sacred that helps you connect to something maybe greater than yourself during this time of the year. For pairing number 4, I am going to use the Green Witch Tarot by Anne Mora. and the Green Witch's Oracle deck by Erin Murphy Hiscock, illustrated by Sarah Richard. I've had this one a year now, and I've had this one for several years, but I've had this one a year now, and I really love this oracle. This pairing I picked to bring forward more of a Yule energy, maybe earthy, grounded, rooted in natural cycles of winter. I think the Green Witch Tarot has maybe an element of hearth magic, kitchen witchery, everyday kind of enchantment. That's what this puts me in mind of. And there's something about its imagery, especially, here with the back and the green and the wreath, that kind of leans into that sense of home and comfort. Boy, I think the tower is going to be shown in all the decks today. But the Green Witch's Oracle, I think, complements this tarot with its simplicity. We have the soft cream backgrounds, the minimal artwork, titles with a couple keywords on it. And I feel like it creates space, gives a little bit of breathing room to the heavily illustrated tarot. And maybe this helps bring forward a more quiet rhythm, brings you out of the hustle and bustle of the holiday season. I don't know. I was kind of thinking that, especially if you're trying to get grounded and, reconnect to those nature-centered traditions. And I think this pairing, I don't know, could maybe even lean in towards solstice energy, gratitude for the earth's rest, tending to your own magic in a more subdued, quiet way as we're, traversing into the winter season. I thought about that energy also with this oracle and this. So I think if like Christmas isn't your thing, and I mean, look at this witch. And I know this doesn't have like a lot of winter scenes to it, but if Christmas or isn't your thing, then I think this pair can help you align with nature. And maybe you could find some symbolism within the oracle. And like this has like the Holly King, I think, in it, that can bridge that holiday or seasonal energy for you and not be so Christmas laden or whatever holiday you celebrate. So that was my thoughts between these two. So my final pairing I put together with the idea of liminality, that liminal space, crossing thresholds, releasing the old year, preparing to step into the new. And for that, I chose the Ethereal Visions Tarot Luna Edition. This is US Games by Matt Hughes and Denise Lynn Sacred Traveler Oracle. Just the way these cards look, I feel bring in that threshold and liminal space. Because if you look here at the Ethereal Visions, it's almost like they're in, oh, do I have this upside down? It's almost like they're in doorways. Okay, let's try this again. At least that's what it feels like with the way that the image is. And same thing we have over here. It's like you're looking through maybe a picture window or something. So there's this, it's almost like a transition space. That's why I felt that these two decks together carry that liminal space. And I always pull the Sacred Traveler out in the month of December every year since I've owned it. I don't know why. It's just ended up slotting into that season and has worked really well for my practice in reading for others at this time also. It almost feels like with this oracle, like it's either bringing forward an energy that you're stuck in or showing you where you're at before you cross the threshold into the new year, something along those lines. That's what I think of whenever I use this deck. We've got the silver foiling here on the Ethereal Visions, which adds, I feel like um, a luminous, almost ceremonial energy to it, and it makes it feel like a celebration, so that kind of leans into that holiday vibe. And like said a moment ago, because of the way these are, the images are, and this feels like a doorway, this feels like a picture window, it's like stepping into, using these, I should say, to step into a new beginning. Also, the cool purple and cream and the silver colors, I think really lean into the purple, brings me into my crown. I'll say that, like an introspective, processing all of it, tapping into my higher self, my guide, my intuition with these purple tones, because that's exactly where I go to, is your crown energy. So I think that's another thing that kind of leads into that transition energy. This is my whole thought process to all of this. And I think when these two decks are used together, it kind of feels like a spiritual map where the oracle shows the path and the threshold or the lesson, and then the tarot reveals the inner response or an emotional truth or your personal transformation, the energy that is you're bringing with you. I think that's a really good way to think about these cards together. And I think it's a perfect pairing to use as you get closer to like the New Year's season, or New Year's in general, to maybe see where you sit, or what is coming up for you in the coming year. And just showing this right here, because I have not filmed these yet, but this might be the pairing that I use for my year ahead readings for clients. I think this would be a really great pairing for them this year. So yeah, that just like struck me as I'm flipping through, looking at all these. And this deck has a few of those like winter scenes in here, which is really nice. And I think that's another reason I lean into winter when I use this deck. So that is all I have for you for the deck pairings for seasonal holiday Yuletide feeling. I'd love to know what you thought of the pairings, or could you see yourself using those pairings at this time of the year? Or how about sharing with me your favorite deck pairings for the holiday season, whether they're actual seasonal decks or something that you just pull from your collection and is a staple and you always like to use at this time of the year. I would love to hear. Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you being here. Don't forget to do all the happy YouTube things, like, subscribe, and all that other good stuff. And until I see you next time, bye.